Welcome everyone to another episode of Wasatch First Podcast. I have my friend Dalton Granger here from Marketing, and then also our friend, the guy in the hat and the earphones as always, is Eric Lichtenberg with Peachy Atomic. Really glad to have these guys here. And this is a really special and cool episode for me, and just really grateful we have my cousin here, Josh Burkman, the People's Warrior himself here. So,
what's up, buddy?
It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, of course. So Josh is the founder of the dojo, retired UFC fighter. A little background on my introduction to Josh. I remember back in like 2007 living at Uncle Rudy's, playing this video game and seeing this guy on there. I'm like, Burkman. It's like, isn't that my mom's maiden name? And then I'm beating up on BJ Penn as Josh Burkman. right back in the day. And so it's cool to see all this come back around, and just super grateful to hear your story today and like really dive into who you are and show the world about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to share it and see what we get into.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty impressed. I was doing my research, and obviously you've got a Wikipedia page, which is always cool enough for me. I don't have one. So, but yeah, you've got obviously a pretty cool story. I mean, you're from Utah, correct?
Yep.
You know, you're
born and raised here, yep.
You went, like high school here and stuff?
So I grew up in South Salt Lake, and then I was supposed to go to a school that was Granite High School, right?
Okay,
and it's
yeah,
now
that one.
Been demolished, you know, because it was a rough school, and our neighborhood was rough too, you know. I went to a junior high called Granite Park Junior High, you know, and you know, I was like the minority in our school, you know, because I went to school with a lot of Polynesians, a lot of black kids, and we got tested a lot, you know what I mean? We got tested a lot because we were like the athletic white kids, you know, and my dad, he didn't want us to go to Granite High School. Just because a lot of people that we were around were starting to like fall into gangs and fall into like, maybe not, and just substances, things that, you know, high school kids shouldn't be messing with.
Yeah.
So he ended up putting us in a baseball league called Crown Colony or Cottonwood something. And that kind of led us into Cottonwood High School. So me and my brother, we went to Cottonwood High School. And it's because my dad wanted us to kind of stay away from Granite High and the things that were going on around there.
Yeah.
And
this is you and Jared.
Yeah,
right?
me and my brother Jared. Yep, that's right.
You guys played baseball.
So we grew up playing like traditional sports. You know, my dad, his dad wasn't around a lot, didn't get him into sports. So my dad fell into drugs. He fell into gangs, things like that. You know, so my dad did a really good job of being present in our life and making sure that didn't happen to us. So his main way to be able to do that was sports, you know. And so he got us into baseball. He got us into basketball, football. I always wanted to box when I was younger. He's like, "You're not boxing. You're not going to fight." Ironic, right? And you know, and so that was kind of like, you know, the upbringing into high school was like traditional sports, that kind of stuff. And then we ended up at Cottonwood where I played, I wrestled, I played baseball, and I played football, you know, and I got all state and all those things.
Wow.
You know, but there was a pivotal moment in my life when I was in 9th grade. I was playing on the high school baseball team, and I wrestled in junior high. And I think this is like, it's just important to preface this, right? Because I had an older brother who was really athletic, liked to beat me up a lot, and the wrestling coach in junior high at Granite Park knew this. And so he came and got me when I was in 7th grade, and he said, "Why are you playing basketball?" And I was like, "What do you mean, why am I playing basketball? I love basketball." He's like, "You should be wrestling." And I was like, "I should be wrestling? Okay, I want to wrestle." But I thought it was like WWF. I wanted to be the Ultimate Warrior, you know? And he said, "Listen, if you come out and you wrestle for 2 years, your brother will never pick on you again." And I was like, "Huh?" I was like, "Well, can I come with basketball? Like, can I play basketball and can I come to wrestling?" Again, I think I'm maybe 12, 13 years old, you know? And he's like, "No. You got to pick one." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm going to play basketball." And so then I went into the wrestling room one day and just wrestled with the guys and found out there was a wrestling tournament. that everybody was going to wrestling. So I had my dad sign me up as an independent wrestler.
Really?
And he's like, yeah, I'll sign up. I showed up in this wrestling tournament, no shoes, basketball shorts, and I won the wrestling tournament.
Oh, nice.
Whoa.
And so and I had been to one practice, right? And the wrestling coach came up to me at school on Monday and was like, hey, we're going to let you wrestle on the team.
Oh, man.
He's
We'll
like,
figure it
out. You don't have to wrestle independent. You just go to basketball. After basketball, come into the wrestling room. And that kind of like started my martial arts and warrior like journey, right? Like, so then the same thing happened to me going from 9th grade into my sophomore year of high school. I was playing baseball. I didn't know whether I was going to wrestle or play basketball. I thought for sure they were going to let me do both. And the wrestling coach had heard I liked to fight, that I'd been in some fights, and I was a pretty tough kid. And the wrestling coach comes out to the baseball field and says, Josh, come over here. He goes, I'm Ben Ojai. Nice to meet you. I'm like, nice to meet you too. And he's like, are you going to wrestle or are you going to play basketball? And I was like, I don't know yet. I haven't decided. I'm hoping to play both. He goes, well, they're not, you can't play both. The basketball coach definitely won't let you play both. He goes, but you're also a 5'10" white kid. He's like, that likes to fight. Wrestling will benefit you the rest of your life. Your basketball career might only have so long. And he's like, we come into the wrestling room, or come into my classroom after baseball practice, and I want to show you something. So I think I'm 15 years old, right? He brings me into his classroom, and he pops in this video of Matt Hughes. And Matt Hughes at the time was an MMA fighter that was just starting out, but he was a national champion wrestler. So it shows this guy wrestling, shows his college career in wrestling and stuff. And then it cuts over to these MMA fights and him beating dudes up and picking them up and slamming them. And he's like, are you going to wrestle or are you going to play basketball? I was like, I'll see you at wrestling practice.
Wow.
And so basketball was like one of my favorite sports to play.
Oh, yeah.
But this, man coming up to me and knowing that I had a really aggressive personality and knowing, without knowing me, how much wrestling would help me and help me with my aggression and help me with my personality, was like, here, come check this out, come try this. And that kind of like shifted my focus into football, baseball, and wrestling. And so that was kind of like the end of my basketball. And that really kind of like propelled me forward into like who I was as a high school athlete and just person,
Yeah.
What I love about that is like those pivotal years where you're needing mentorship, you had people step up to the plate. You even had people who, like Uncle Rudy, your dad, Rudolph, he knew what mistakes he had made or what was missing in his life, but he stepped up and said, this is what Jared and Josh are going to do. And can't forget Lex as well. So that way you guys are set onto that next path. And that's what I see, when I come here to the dojo.
Right.
We can get into that a little bit later because we want to hear more of your background, but then we'll talk about the dojo, is that you're laying a foundation to get kids on the right path, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's exactly what it is, to get people on their right path so that we're all going to make mistakes and we're all going to make bad choices. It's part of growing up. It's part of figuring out who we are. But it's recognizing that maybe that's not the right path for me. That is a mistake. Teaching kids in here, you look up at this wall, and the first thing people see is integrity, respect, compassion, courage, all these virtues that is the way of the warrior, and I think that what we're teaching these kids is you can be aggressive and you need to channel your aggression, and that helps you understand your emotion and understand who you are. And there's nothing that taught me that better than the wrestling room. And, again, so what's funny is that was 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And almost 30 years, aged myself a little. Coach Ojai is still helping me coach these little kids over at Olympus High School.
Really?
Yeah.
And he's been one of my mentors, one of my greatest mentors ever since that moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's, And I feel like what you're saying, it's like, man, if I can reach a couple kids like he reached me,
Yeah.
then I'm doing my job.
Yep.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I'm doing my job as an elder. I'm doing my job as a mentor. And the word mentor, right, is what Odysseus, in that journey, he left and he left his son with mentor, right, to guide his kid and his soul into a place where he would be happy as his dad was gone, and that's why I say, like, Ojai was a great mentor to me, and I only hope that I can give a little bit of that to kids in this community, because if I didn't, I don't feel like I would be doing myself or the men who led me service. I could go and retire and golf and hang out on a boat and show people my cool cars, and to me that would not be fulfilling to me. From the life that I've lived and the hardships that I've been through, if I hadn't created a space where young men and women can come and I could guide them and hopefully through some of the things that they've been through,
Right.
Yeah.
or that I've been through that they will face in their lives,
Right. It's like life's not easy no matter what, right?
Right.
And so it's like, but you've been really blessed, and because of great mentors, you've been blessed in a good life, and you want to give them the same chances that some people don't get without these kind of people that really shape your lives. And I think everyone has some people like that they can look to and go, yeah, you've helped me get to where I'm at, and it's so grateful. That I love the way you put it though, because it really does. It's like it's a what's the word I'm thinking of is it's the devotion you have that, like, this has been so great for me, and I'm so grateful for it, that it would be so wrong to not try and do the same thing as you've come in through this journey.
Right.
Is huge. For you're a young kid, you don't think about it as much at the time, but then you go, well, like, these people without these big decisions, I didn't think were big decisions maybe at the time.
Right.
Giving up basketball for wrestling, it's cool, but many kids could give up sports for certain things, but then all of a sudden now look where it's taken you in your journey.
Right.
And so I love that. And so
as we look back at those things, right, we're like, man, why did Coach Ojai come get me?
Yep.
30 years later, again, this guy's guided me through really, really hard moments in my life. You know what I mean? Where, high school, I always thought I was going to play baseball or football.
Okay. Like next in college stuff. Yeah.
In college. And for sure, my dad raised me and my brother in a way that, like, we were going to be professional athletes.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? We had grades, we did certain things, but, like, he raised us to be professional athletes, and we knew that we could be professional athletes as long as we kind of stayed on the right track and made the main thing the main thing. But then, again, high school, I was all state in wrestling, took second in state, lost, match I probably shouldn't have lost my senior year. Football, had a great season, got all state options for scholarships. Baseball, similar thing, but I kind of lost the passion for baseball a little bit. I was a little more aggressive and needed a little bit more. And I started to lose the guidance from my father, right? And a lot of the coaches and people around me, they knew that I had a good dad that was guiding us and mentoring us. But my dad and my mom got divorced my senior year of high school. So halfway through my senior year, my parents got divorced. I had never drank. I had never smoked. I had never had sex. 18-year-old high school kid. I thought I was pretty handsome. I was pretty athletic. All those things were at my disposal, but I was so focused on school, being a good athlete, that nothing really distracted me. I had pretty good tunnel vision for creating a success as an athlete. And my dad, he started drinking again my senior year, and he got sober when I was 6 years old, and he had stayed pretty much sober until that point of me being in my senior year, but he started drinking a little bit. And my mom told him, if you ever drink again, I'm going to leave you. And she wasn't going to live that life again, and she left my dad. And so I'm 18-year-old kid. My dad starts partying and drinking again. So he didn't mind that we started to do that with him. My mom, she moved out of the house, and she was trying to figure out who she was now. like what she was going to do. She felt like she had got us through high school.
Yeah.
But for me, it was probably one of the most important times of my life, deciding where I was going to go to college, what scholarship I was going to take, what am I going to do in my life? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I lost that structure. I no longer had a curfew. I no longer had parents caring where I was or what I was doing. And so I started to drink a little bit. I started to party a little bit. And I mean, BYU showed up to talk to me at school and I didn't show up. My football coach said, bro, BYU was here for you today. And like, you didn't show up to your meeting with them.
Oh my God.
Like they have no interest in you now. Not to mention I missed Utah State's. I missed a couple other schools, you know what I mean?
For like the football
football
program?
scholarship, yeah. And just for recruitment opportunities, you know, they come to the school, you sit down with them, they say come to a game, they watch the film, they figure out what kind of kid you are, if they want you to be at their school. And I never sat in front of them and was like, this is why you want me on your team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I was drunk at lunch. And I'd never done those things in my life. So they kind of like took me over a little, you know?
It's new experiences. You've never, you know,
you're
never very disciplined and then you just, you know, you start.
And your parents like, hey, be home at 10 o'clock. And now nobody's telling you to be home and you're out drinking with your buddies. And, you know, just, and not having anybody to tell that, hey, Dad, I drink. Hey, and it was, I didn't realize how sad I was that nobody cared. Do you know what I mean? Yep. I just was in this survival mode of like, and then 18 years old, freedom, girls, you know? Yeah. And so there's in the summer ball, there's baseball. It's called Legion, right? It's the summer baseball. And I'm in a game. We're playing Murray High School. And there's a guy named Steve Shaffbuck, and Steve Shaffbuck comes up and he's like, hey, Josh, how are you? I'm like, I'm good. He's like, oh, we're here to watch Chris Shelton play today. And he's like, where did you end up deciding to play football? And I was like, I don't know yet. I don't know what I'm going to do. He's like, what do you mean you don't know what to do? Like, school's going to start in a month or so. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, what about baseball? And I was like, oh, yeah, you haven't really, thought much about baseball. He's like, you're not going to go play baseball anywhere? And I was like, well, I don't know. And he's like, well, we should talk. If you're not going to go play baseball anywhere, then like, we'll give you a scholarship to come play baseball. And this guy that's a professional recruit that is a coach at Salt Lake Community College has been sending me to professional baseball camps and scouting camps for the last 3 years was like, huh?
How do you not have this?
How are you not playing somewhere yet? And, so I got up, first inning, left-handed, pitcher threw a ball. I hit this ball 380 feet over a house, left-handed. Run around the bases. Listen, I did this often. You know what I mean? It was no big deal. Then I got up right-handed. I switched stance, right-handed, hit a ball over center field. Center field fence in Cottonwood's 405 feet. I hit it 20 yards past, Wow. And I run to the dugout, high five my team. Shaffbuck says, Burkman, come here. I walk to the end of the dugout. He goes, I am going to send you a paper and you're going to sign it. And it's a scholarship and you're going to come to Salt Lake Community College. I was like, all right, let's do it. And that was kind of like, where I ended up. And I could have a scholarship for football. I could have a scholarship for baseball. But again, just no guidance. And so I went to Salt Lake Community College. My brother was going to start at shortstop. I was going to start at second base.
Oh, nice.
And the coach calls me in and he says, well, we got good news and bad news, Josh. I was like, he's like, one, you're, going to start at second base. You're doing a great job. He said, the problem is you're not a student athlete. You haven't gone to school yet. Like, why have you not gone to class? I'd been at school for a month and a half. I hadn't been to class one time. And because I just never got in the routine of waking up and going to class. I swear, true story. And he said, you need to get your life together. He's like, I'm hearing stories. You should either go on a mission or go into the military. Because you're going to lose your eligibility. You're going to lose your scholarship. but I don't know that you probably could go on a mission, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're right. So I left that meeting with my coach and called my aunt. I called Lisa.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I said, hey, you're a recruiter. What can you do for me about going into the military?
Oh, wow.
And it was just like that, like no big deal, not worried about leaving baseball. But I knew that I needed some discipline in my life. I knew that I was being really reckless. We were getting in a lot of fights, you know, and at this point in my life, I'd probably been in 60, 70 fist fights.
Oh, just straight. Like,
Just, you know, from whether brawling with another baseball team, being at a basketball game at high school. One time Layton came down to Cottonwood because they heard we had some tough kids. We were on one side of the basketball court. Layton was on the other side of the basketball court. We were all talking smack. I point out of the doors. The other kid points over there. We all end up out in the hallway. The cops come out, break it up. At the first of the basketball season when I was a sophomore, there was one cop at the basketball game. By my senior year, there were a fleet of 6 cop cars at these Cottonwood basketball games. There was a cop on each corner of the basketball court, and then there was cops patrolling through because we'd been in so many fights.
wow.
And we had never lost any of those fights. And Layton had a lot of tough kids. So we get ushered out. The Layton kids get ushered out. Me and my brother go the long way. So we run out the long way, run out the back doors, and meet 100 Layton kids in the parking lot. And I walk right into the middle towards this big kid, and there's a cop right there. And the kid's like, what are you going to do? I reach around the cop, and I hit this dude right in the side of the head, and he drops.
Oh, my God.
The cop grabs me, puts me over the cop car, puts my hands behind my back. Who do you think walks up and saves me? Ben Ohio.
I was going to say, one of your
Coach
I can't remember the
Ohio.
name.
Right.
Coach,
Coach.
yeah.
Walks
Yeah,
up,
Coach Ohio.
grabs my hands. He goes, you get the other guy. I got this son of a bitch. And
Oh my God.
he goes, get out of here, Josh.
No
Lets me
way.
go.
Wow.
I take off.
Wow.
And that story is like one that's like the
Yeah.
mellowed down
Yeah.
version of it, you know?
But,
But
yeah.
again, Ohio was there to like
he's
help
still
me
looking out.
get out of here. And so that was kind of a lot of what was happening in high school my senior year. And it was happening often. We brawled with Viewmont. We brawled with Skyline. We brawled with like,
Wow.
and I don't tell that to like, to boast.
No, right.
it's just
Right.
life.
It's just
Yeah,
part of that.
It's part of the story.
That journey, that story that, you know, like, has led me here, you know?
So interesting to me, the crossings, you know, within life. Like, so shout out to Coach Ohio first off for being there for Josh, but even for me as his little cousin, I remember being a kid, and you know, the influence of mentors is wild because they can influence people. Like, I never knew Coach Ohio existed. I never knew that.
Right.
But when I think about the influence you had on like me and my brother Steven and Michael and Emily and all of us, and just how that went about, and then years later I meet Coach Burt, who you guys,
Yeah,
you
played football together.
yeah,
in
you and him,
Cottonwood,
yeah, right. And Coach Burt, Coach Korb, Coach Plume, these are guys I grew up with who same thing. Like the life, like you're telling this story, and I'm seeing myself and my dad and stories that we told over the years and things
Right.
that happened with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so important. We live in a day and age where I think sometimes people are intimidated to be the right type of man or the right type of masculine man, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
And that can be put into, oh, this is toxic or this is bad. But we need aggressive, good men to teach aggressive, young, immature men how to be good and how to live that good, disciplined life.
Yeah,
And because if people like Coach Ohio don't come in, right, or Coach Burt or other, you know, mentors, things like that, then this is how criminals are made. This is how,
Yeah.
you know, kids without direction get totally lost, end up hurting people for life.
Right.
And so I hear this story from Coach Ohio, and I'm just like, man, I don't know who you are, but thank God you
Right.
ended up in my cousin's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for him, who knows what kind of trouble I would have got into. Who knows if I would have even been able to manage, and I would have, because I had a really good father. I had a good family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's really important, you know, and especially now as aggression and masculinity is starting to get like stomped on a little bit.
It's like being
you know?
questioned. Is it
And
something?
yeah, and it's like aggression is good. and we go through different stages of masculinity, but the goal would be to be get into this positive place of masculinity where it's like, no, it's protected and it's strong and it's powerful, and then that becomes a little bit more mature. And then that gets a little deeper and deeper and deeper, right? And it evolves, and it's for surely what my story is, and I think the danger in this is that, like, we see aggressive boys and we want to put them on medicine. We want them to sit in a desk and do class instead of letting them channel that aggression, play with that adventurousness, and it's like in Russia, right? Aggression is like, it's a really positive thing, but that's a country that's been invaded, been in wars. So these boys are wrestling, they are fighting, they are, there are stories of world champion wrestlers who've never even taken a warm shower because they don't have warm water for one. They're used to bathing and showering in these cold showers. And when American wrestlers go over and watch them, they're like, oh my goodness. Yeah. I don't even want to get in that shower. This dude's like, Yeah. And I think why is because America's never been invaded. We have not seen war on our soil, and there's so much going on now that it's like, but if we had, we would look at masculinity and we would look at aggressiveness much different. And hopefully that's not what shifts the mentality around masculinity and aggression in America, because we're playing and teetering with dangerous things by saying masculinity is toxic. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. I have a really dear friend of mine. She's a therapist and social worker, and she leans into what she calls more like traditional feminism. And in that she'd shared this article the other day, and it talked about the importance of supporting the masculine. And even if you are a quote unquote feminist, how important it is to take people who are warriors, people who are fighters, like the true masculine protective man, and don't attack that person, don't dismantle them. Like that, we should be on the same side as the feminine and as the masculine, because ultimately, like that's just like what is going to fight for protecting those individuals who are weak. It's going to be that type of person, right?
Yeah. Well, and so that's what the warrior in society was. It was the protector, the hunter, the provider. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now the warrior spirit in America is dying. And part of the reason for the dojo is to revive the warrior spirit in little boys and little girls. Do you know what I mean? Just in case it's needed. Hopefully it's not. But the way that things are happening in the world right now, there's a good chance that it's going to be needed.
I worry my wife going out, and I'm like, and she's a 5'1", tiny 100-pound woman. And it's like, okay, if there's you either need to learn how to protect yourself, or you're going to get something that's going to help you protect yourself, because you just don't know, right? I don't know when she's working alone in an office who could walk in, right? And it's like, ever since I became a married man, obviously, like it did, because when I was a kid, I think about this, and I was thinking of your journey. I'm like, I was a dumb 18-year-old kid at one point, right? That aggression, I didn't have that channel. So yeah, you just do dumb stuff and you'd use that aggression in dumb ways. And if you don't have somebody that does mentor that, you get in the wrong crowd where you into a gang. And then that aggression just gets pushed into the worst directions, right? And you become a criminal. But then if you get them, then you kind of get older and you start maturing. And I think when you get into that a bit, but then you become married. Then you're now a protector. So that aggression is not, you don't need to throw it around. But as soon as it hits the fan, shit hits the fan, you are ready to protect with everything for the people you care about. I'm not a parent yet, but I can't even imagine how that just amplifies you of like, this is my child.
For sure.
And
then there's more to love. So there's more to protect, and I always say, I'm not, the number one reason a man should be physically fit and know how to fight is to be able to protect his loved ones in his family.
Exactly.
And it's not the non-trained martial artist or that we need to worry about. It's the insecure masculine.
Exactly. The untrained
if we're
aggressive.
Talking about that because they're insecure and they're trying to prove themselves. And if they get into gangs, they get around other immature or weak masculine, then they're trying to be like, oh, did you see what I did? Oh, did you see what I did?
Overcompensating.
And they're just constantly trying to prove themselves, right? Like, I have nothing to prove. My ego's been served. I'm not mean to people, and I'm actually really kind to people. But if you're disrespectful to somebody around me, the last thing you'll remember is my kindness, and then I don't have to show that to people very often. And that's definitely gone through phases, right? Where the military was really good for me.
So you did actually go into the military.
So I went in, I was done with school, withdrew from school.
Wow.
Went into the military because I was like, oh, I want to be a trained killer. Like, that's
use
what
this aggression,
I want to do
discipline,
now.
and
like,
use
I
it.
want to go and learn to fight weapons and live in the woods, and like, I want to be an Army Ranger. Like, that's what I want to be. So I signed up to be a Ranger. Basic training, I got in 3 fights. I was up for 3 Article 15s. One guy tried to steal my washing machine. Came up, moved my clothes, put his clothes on mine, says, this is my washing machine. I was like, I'd be happy to fight you over it. And we fought. I whooped his ass, got an Article 15, threw my stuff in the laundry while he's laying on the ground, walked upstairs, said, drill sergeant, what's his name? Caused a confrontation in the washing machine. He's laying downstairs.
Oh my gosh.
True. So I loved the military. But I was not fit for military lifestyle. As I got through basic training, I could write a book on basic training.
Oh, I bet.
Because I would sneak down to the PX and buy candy bars and chew and a pack of beer, and then I would hide it behind a brick wall, and I would sell candy bars for $5 a piece, and I would sell a beer for $20, and I would sell a thing of chew for $50.
Yeah.
I mean, and I made a lot of money in basic training.
It's a good thing you didn't get into gangs, man.
Because I'm a capitalist also.
Wheeling and dealing. Thanks again, Coach Ohio.
And so that might be Rudy. That might be Rudy and me, So I left basic training and went into airborne school. In airborne school, they came and got me and said, hey, we would like you to do special training. We know you're a little aggressive, but we want you to go to sniper school.
Like,
we
you're
want
an
you to go
athlete,
to
you're
Halo
really good at
school.
this.
We want you to, do all these different trainings after RIP, and then we'll, decide where your station is. So I did airborne school, then I went into RIP. And RIP is the Ranger Indoctrination Program.
Okay.
And before we even set out on our first bivouac, a sergeant did something to me that was disrespectful and went to grab me. And he went to grab me, and I threw his hand off me, and he tried to be a little more aggressive with me. So I punched him. I grabbed his head, hit him with the knee, knocked him out, went and got the captain. I don't know if it was captain or sergeant or what at this point anymore.
Superior officer.
Superior officer, told him what happened. The next day, I was on my way home in a bus.
Wow.
So they had to do some paperwork, and they had to do this paperwork with my aunt because they had, but basically they were going to help me get out of the military with an unable to adapt to military lifestyle.
Okay. Not like dishonorable discharge.
Not dishonorable. Like, and now, I've gone through my discharge, all the things, but that's a whole nother story.
We'll get into that another time.
Which is it's so crazy. So I came home and I decided to play football in college. So I went down to Snow College. I went to the baseball coach. I said, hey, Robert Anderson, I said, I want to play baseball here. He's like, you want to play baseball here? It's like, it's been a couple years. Where you been? I think it was actually probably like a little over a year. And he's like, I'll give you a scholarship. And he gave me a scholarship to play baseball.
Nice.
And what I really wanted to do was use baseball so that I could play football. So I got my scholarship for baseball, played the baseball season. Then I went out and tried out for the football team. And tried out for the football team, started at running back, got a full ride scholarship for football. So I had a scholarship for football and for baseball. When we were playing Dixie College in football, I had 8 carries for 160 yards.
Nice.
Coach Croshaw, who is the coach at Dixie, comes across the field, shakes my hand, and says, hey, if you come to Dixie next year, I'll give you 30 carries a game. kept walking.
Really?
Well,
Long
160
story.
yards, 8 carries. So you averaged like 16 yards a
I
carry?
mean, I broke one for 80 yards. I had another one for 60,
Holy
and then
hell.
probably a couple little runs in
yeah,
between
but
there, right?
Yeah, I know, but you averaged
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
averaging,
Yeah,
like you
so-
actually did really well.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
No,
So-
that's more than well. That's like no, that's like
American football, yeah.
football, Dalton. That's like that's a
Right?
really
It was a good.
really
It was a good game, and like I said, we were passing offense, so I
Oh,
only
so
had
you
8
okay.
carries.
Yeah.
Long story short, I went to Dixie the next year.
Yep.
Got 30 carries a game. Had 1,500 yards. Got All American.
Wow.
Had a full ride scholarship to go to the University of Utah. I'm driving home from the from Dixie to come move up here to go to the U. There's a few details in there. I needed to take a math 1050 class to get the scholarship, and I heard this thing on the radio, and this thing on the radio said, if you think you're the toughest guy in Utah, come sign up for these MMA fights. And I was
So on the radio, you just heard this.
on the
thing, like,
radio.
This clicks.
I
with
was
me.
not watching the UFC or anything like that, I think Hoist Gracie was like the guy coming up, and all the time in college, people knew I liked to fight. They knew I wrestled. They're like, how do you think you do against Hoist Gracie? I'm like, I'd whoop that dude's ass. Like, I'll beat
It was like
that
Randy
dude up,
Couture, like Chuck Liddell.
And so, well, that was later because that was 10 years later from where I was at this point, because this was, I think right around this point is when Senator McCain tried to outlaw band fighting because they called it human cockfighting. So the Fertittas and Dana White had to go through all these loopholes, get athletic commissions, establish weight classes.
Oh, really?
And that was all happening around this time in 2002.
Okay.
Right?
yeah, okay.
So I heard this thing and I was like, they're doing legal fist fights at the bar? So my buddy Charlie Johnson calls me up, says, bro, I just heard they're having fights downtown. I'm like, I just heard that. He's like, I wrote the number down for you. I'm like, give me the number. So I'm driving home on a Thursday. I go weigh in on a Friday. I fight on a Saturday, and my life changed forever.
Whoa.
Right?
Wow.
I fought this guy named Hank Weiss. I beat him up for the first round. Went back, sat in the corner, could barely breathe, could barely stand up. And I was in good shape. I was in like football
Right,
shape,
like, yeah.
And but I hadn't wrestled in years. I hadn't done jiu-jitsu or boxing ever except for
Like trained
street
fighting.
fights.
Right.
I was not a trained martial artist. And I looked over at this dude with about 15 seconds left, and he's standing up, bouncing around. And I look at my cousin Willie, and I was like, because my mom wouldn't come to the fight, my dad wouldn't come to the fight. They're like, I
So
am not
Willie's
going to
there?
support
That's
this.
crazy.
My cousin Willie's in the corner. I look at him, I'm like, I can't move. He's like, well, you better breathe because you got to get up in 15 seconds. And I look over at Hank Weiss, and he's just bouncing around ready to fight me. So I run out, throw a big overhand, punch at him, try to double leg him and pick him up, slam him. All of a sudden, I'm on my back in an armbar, tapping out.
Wow.
And I was like, man, I laid there, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I ever did in my life, And then I went back in the back, dry heaved a couple times, laid on my back, and I had this whole vision of a communication with God showing me my future. And like I had nothing left. I was so weak that I couldn't do anything but lay there and listen anyway. And this is going to be the biggest sport in the world.
Yeah.
And this is going to save your life. You should be a professional fighter. You should be a martial artist. And I was 22 years old at the time. I dropped out of school.
So you
I
had
started
this whole
training-
U scholarship, you just dropped it all.
Dropped it all, let it all go, and started training to be a professional fighter. I won my next 9 fights, and I still dealt with a little bit of drinking a lot. I wasn't an alcoholic, and I was not a drug addict. I liked to party. I liked to fight. I like to go out and party with my friends, and I like to train hard.
Ultimate Fighter days.
Yeah, the Ultimate Fighter days. What a hashtag. Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, no, I remember getting introduced to Spike TV in like 2005, 2006, and tuning into all that culture and everything that was
How
going
old were
on.
you then?
Oh man, I would have been 2006. I would have been like 10, 11
That's
years old.
that's so wild.
Yeah, I remember Josh, because I was into like Linkin Park, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
that. Then Fort Minor comes out.
Remember the name.
The song "Remember the Name" had
Remember
come
the
out.
Name.
I didn't even because my family was a little bit detached first few years. So when I was 11 is when I was like, okay, I have these cousins, Jared and Josh. But I remember Steven and I would listen to remember the name. And then, Uncle Rudy's chilling, smoking a cigar, cooking steaks. And he's like, hey, your cousin's about to be on TV. And I was like, what the hell? Like, what are you talking about? My cousin's going to be on TV. You go out there, and I can't remember who you fought, if it was either Mike Quickswick or John Finch or something like that.
Right.
But I remember the name was playing. And I was like, this
It was
is my
Mike
blood?
Swick. It was Mike Swick.
Yeah, I was like, this is my blood? I was like, what are you talking about? But seeing that whole culture then, the Rampage Jackson days, Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, and like you lived, like you were in the epicenter of that era.
In it
right?
with them, yeah. And I was one of the best fighters in the world at that time. I was top 10 fighter in the world.
Wow.
And, so what happened is, I won 9 fights in a row, and I became the best fighter in Utah, relatively easy, pretty fast, and then I was like, I don't want to be the best guy in Utah. And I also don't want to be winning fights and hanging out at bars. Like, I want to be a professional athlete. And so I moved to Oregon to train with Randy Couture. That's where Team Quest was. It was the best fight team in the world at the time. And I moved up there, and I just simplified my life. I lived in an attic with a desk and a bed. I had the scriptures, and I read martial arts books. Bruce Lee, Boss Rutan, and like I said, I read the Bible.
Explain to everybody who Randy Couture is, because the audience may not know. Randy, for me, when I think of MMA, and people can, but there was that time of Randy was, rivaled with Chuck Liddell right before Brock Lesnar came in. But Randy, to me, was such a epitome of what it meant to be a classic UFC fighter, and he was retired military too. Yeah. Tell people about that.
Well, Randy, was just one of those guys that's like, I wanted to be the best in the world, so why not go train with the guy that's the best in the world?
Right.
And he was a multi division champion. And he had so many of the attributes that I wanted to have. He was well spoken, had the right things to say. He was a humble guy, but whooped everybody's ass. Which is so different than some of the champions now that are, kind of modeling Chael Sonnen's smack talk and Conor McGregor's smack talk, and because they're marketing a character, not necessarily being authentic to who they are, and so Randy was just the guy that I wanted to go and learn from. And I figure many times in my life, I have seeked out the best in my profession and been like, I'm going to go learn from them. And I've done that in business and coaching and fighting, and like I said, I still do it to this day.
That's
right.
Awesome.
And so I lived there. I was in the UFC within probably a year of that time. So I started fighting a month before my 23rd birthday. By the time I was 25, I was in the UFC.
Wow. Awesome.
With that, but I disappeared for a year and a half, and was sober, trained 3 times a day, studied martial arts. I mean, I fully immersed myself in martial arts and training. And in 2005, I got onto the Ultimate Fighter, and I broke my arm on the show in the second season of the Ultimate Fighter. I broke my arm fighting a guy named Melvin Gillard, but I still won the fight.
Oh,
but
really?
I couldn't continue on in the show because I had a broken arm. And so Dana White came, picked me up in the sequester house, was like, hey, I think you should have won the show. You should have never picked Melvin to fight first. We're going to give you an opportunity to fight on the finale. If you win your fight in the finale, we'll give you a UFC contract.
Really?
Yep. So I trained, leading up to that fight. I went golfing and fractured the calcium buildup that was happening in my arm.
Yeah.
So all I could do leading up to that fight for almost 4 weeks was do yoga.
Oh, wow.
And I got into this really powerful visualizations and doing my yoga because I couldn't train. So I started to visualize myself winning and training, and I went out and fought Sam Morgan. I beat him in 21 seconds in almost the exact manner that I visualized 50 times, at least 50 times before I went into that cage. And I was like, wait a minute, did I create that? Or did that happen? So it really started to be like, wait a minute, maybe I can create this life that I want to create. Maybe I'm the one in charge of this, right?
Yeah.
And then, that was I won a couple fights in a row, became top 10 fighter in the world, had some big upsets. But I lived like a rock star. Mm-hmm. So fighting wasn't the main thing. Fighting supported the party lifestyle that I was living too. Mm-hmm. And in 2005, the celebrities and the athletes started coming around the fights. Mm-hmm. And they were like, "Are you real? You're a fighter, huh?" Yeah. And they thought we were like characters.
Really?
So I really enjoyed that. I was hanging out in LA a lot. I was hanging out in Las Vegas a lot. I became friends with the people that owned the clubs in Las Vegas, became, friends with the people that threw the parties in LA. So I would party for about 6-7 weeks after a fight. Then I'd get a fight. I'd move home, sober up, be real disciplined, and win the fight. And then be like, "Oh, I'm not going to party anymore." And then there'd be a party I couldn't resist, That's
how it works.
And then all of a sudden I was in Vegas for 2 weeks. Then I was in LA living at the Roosevelt for a couple weeks.
Yeah. Gosh.
And then they were calling me up going, "You want to fight again?" I was like, "I better go home." Not to mention I had my best friend was, playing in the NBA. Oh. And so we were living the life.
Yeah.
Where was he playing at?
And he got drafted, Jackson Broman. He got drafted by the Suns. We were roommates at Snow College.
2007?
Yeah. Right. No, he would have been drafted. Yeah, about 2006,
so Steve
2007.
Nash was still there? Or?
Yeah, he played with Nash. I got to hang out with Nash.
So yeah, he's having a good time
Scottsdale
too.
all the time.
So we just hit 155. So what we're gonna do, just so everybody's aware, is we want to do a couple episodes highlighting Josh's story and really diving deep into these things. Because in between the UFC and the people you met, interactions,
we haven't even touched on the dojo much.
There's so much that we can get into this. So what I think would be a good way to hone this together, and then you give me your insight, what you think.
Yeah.
I think next time we could talk more about the UFC, but I want to do two things. One, because I think this matches well with the Randy Couture thing. Why did you choose to be called the People's Warrior?
Oh, right.
And then why choose that name? And then bring that into just talking about the dojo and helping people learn more about the dojo. Yeah, let's do that.
Well, so I think the story that to just wrap this up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The story ends with me at 29 years old, having maybe more hype than the majority of the guys that had came into the UFC, magazine articles and different things being like, this guy could be the next great fighter. He could be the next great champion. Fell short because at 29 years old, I was only a fighter. And the definition of a fighter is to struggle, right? And so I would live my life very disciplined and very focused. And then I would ruin all that discipline and all that focus from partying and not having a sober mind. And what that did is that ended up me at 29 years old having my career taken away from me because I had a herniated disc in my neck and my body was hurting really bad because I hadn't been taking care of myself like a professional athlete, doing the things that I was doing, training the ways that I should have been taking care of themselves. And because I was really selfish, right? Like I was living my life for myself, which I feel like was really beneficial to me becoming who I am right now at 43 years old, caring about my community, caring about my kids, loving my wife, and really being a family man, right? Like, but I don't think if I wouldn't have been young and foolish and reckless, I don't think that I would be in this place where I feel much wiser now, right? And that was that journey in my 20s, a journey in that immature masculine, trying to conquer the world, showing I'm the baddest dude on the planet, for the gold, for the prize fighting, right? And so where the People's Warrior name came in is that first fight I was telling you about. All of a sudden, a TV show started right when that was going on. And I brought my buddy, Robert Rovita, in to help and produce that TV show that was called The Ultimate Combat. And the very first fight that I went to, they said there were like right around 100 people at the fights that would go. But when I fought, there was 800 people that showed up to watch me fight, you know? And it was a huge crowd. And then the next time, there started to be 1,000 plus people at all these fights. So the second fight, my buddy goes, "You need a nickname." And he's production. He's putting this on for TV. He's producing it for TV. And he's like, "You guys need nicknames." And he's like, "Who was your favorite wrestler?" I was like, "Well, Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior." He's like, "The Ultimate Warrior was your favorite?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay." So he gets off the phone. He calls me back a little while later. He goes, "You're the People's Warrior." And I was like, "Huh? No, I hate that. I don't want a nickname, bro. Like, call me Burkman."
Yeah.
Not Josh, nothing, just Burkman. He goes, "Why not the People's Warrior?" He's like, "Dude, everybody loves you. Like, they love coming to your fights." He's like, "You just have a personality that draws people in, and you should go with the People's Warrior." And I was like, "No, don't call me the People's Warrior. I'll be so pissed. Just call me Burkman." He's like, "All right, bro." Hang up the phone. I go fight. The first TV show comes out on like KU TV or whatever it was, right? K-Jazz. And I'm watching it. It's the first time I've ever watched myself fight. They're like, and they would do voiceovers. So after we fought, then they would go in and they would do the voiceovers and like, "This kid, Josh Burkman, they call him the People's Warrior." And I was like, "Oh, you didn't." Like, you didn't. And then after like that episode, like people started being like, "People's Warrior, hey, PW." Guy named Johnny Ritchie tagged the PW thing, right? Yeah. And he started calling me that. And it stood without me knowing. Then when I got on the Ultimate Fighter, they had heard about my nickname. And they're like, "You're not getting rid of the nickname. Like, it's just very much you," right? So I never loved it, but it all just kind of like just stuck. You know what I mean? And I was never the guy that's like, I tried to change my nickname. When I was 27, I tried to change it to Hollywood.
Really?
It did not stick. It did, and I wanted it to stick because I was hanging out in LA. I was hanging out in Hollywood. I was hanging out with the celebrities. I was partying.
That's
I was like Hollywood Burkman. You know, like.
Do you see this though? Like, just take a second to see this because you talk about who you are as the mentor and the Josh at Burkman at 43.
Right.
You are the People's Warrior now, but back then you were Hollywood. Right. But it's almost as if, like, whatever it is, believe whatever you want.
Foreshadowing,
to.
right?
It's a foreshadow. Like, you didn't embrace that, but that's ultimately what was happening. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, like, man, when I had, I think so. Over here, there's a little like creed on the that comes in, and there's a story behind that too, but that doesn't need to be shared. But the way that I got it was pretty powerful. And what it says is we're all here for 99 and 100 years at the very most. And why we're here on this planet, we should do something good and we should do something useful with our lives. And if we contribute to other people's happiness, we'll find the true meaning and the true purpose of life. And there's nothing that makes me happier than having kids that are upset or not feeling confident or not feeling secure in who they are come in here and learn to have confidence with their bodies and their emotions and to just be excited to come to the dojo. The same thing with wrestling. And I feel that we need that. Kids need that now, right? Like they're sitting in desks, they're sitting in school. My son feels like school is jail. You know what I mean? Like he has a really, really hard time with it.
Yeah.
And kids need to be able to wrestle. They need to be able to, if you watch the Animal Kingdom, you know what I mean? You see these kids, these little monkeys and gorillas wrestling and playing and fighting. And I just think that needs to be accepted in a way of human development, right? Physical contact, physical touch, you know, physical exertion.
Kinetic learning.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I was getting ready to retire from fighting, and we'll get back into this stuff later, I did a plant medicine journey. And in that journey, I got to meet a very divine, powerful being. And I said, what am I supposed to do with my life now? Like, what am I supposed to do now that I'm not gonna fight anymore. And it would, and basically what he told me was like, you need to teach. And I was like, teach what? I'm like, teach everything you've been through, and teach all that you know, and teach it in the way that you want to teach it, and guide people to the source. And I was like, interesting, you know? And then as I came out of that, and I don't care what anybody thinks of me. So, I mean, I did ayahuasca and it was amazing and showed me my path. And then that's why all of a sudden an opportunity came up to teach. And then an opportunity after that came up to take over a gym. And that both those things went good. That created another opportunity for be able to open this gym, which I couldn't have opened this gym without the support of my wife, because she does everything that I'm not good at. And it was this like beautiful union. And I guess, again, if I hadn't went through what I went through in my 20s, and I hadn't gone through what went through in my 30s, then I wouldn't be in this place in my 40s where I have nothing to prove to anybody. I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I don't care people's opinions of me. I'm very set on the purpose that I'm doing, and the purpose that I'm doing is adding to people's lives and kids' lives, and teaching them how to breathe, and teaching them how to move, and really trying to give them a human experience, so that that human experience can help them grow and evolve and mature. And the way that we do that is through the way of the warrior, you know, and teaching them not just fighting techniques, but teaching them about behavior, teaching them about self-control.
It's so good.
And so that's where the people warrior came through. And for so long, I didn't quite get it, but I knew there was something to it. And now, you know, again, whatever the nickname, what I am is I'm a coach and I'm a teacher, and I try to teach people how to manage the emotions of life and the life forces and the energies, so that you are not a slave to society, so that you can strengthen yourself in such a way that you can use your free will to free yourself and live the life that you want to live.
Yeah. You're a father, man.
Yeah,
You're doing a good job.
definitely. You know,
You're doing it.
I love being a husband. I love being a father. I love the life that me and my wife are creating, and the way that we're able to influence kids. And, you know, again, we didn't get into like what
we will.
the
next
dojo
time for
is,
sure.
but the dojo is not a gym. The dojo is a spiritual space, and it's a spiritual space that you can come in and explore yourself, right? And in exploring yourself, you learn to have a deeper understanding for yourself and all those around you.
And community.
You know, and then if you can really, you know, figure out who you are and play with your aggression and play with your ego, hopefully, you know, you can realize that we're all a vital role in our families and communities, and we feel connected to everybody a little bit more, you know, where I think there's so many people that don't have good father figures, and they miss the father figure going, good job, congratulations, hey, you did good, buddy. And then as the immature masculine, we're looking for acceptance. We're posting all this stuff just to get people to say good job. And sometimes if we just have a good mentor, we have a good father that's like, good job, you did well, you know, then sometimes we can more easily move into the mature roles of the masculine, where our ego's been served and we're not still trying to prove to everybody that we deserve something, you know.
Well, then you become that for them, for the younger generation. You're the one that's impressed, and you take that back step and say, you've done great, you're doing the good job, and you build them up to the next step.
And that's our most precious commodity, or most asset or resource is kids. Kids and this next generation. And man, I just feel like kids are missing out on a human experience with phones and iPads and games, and it's like, no, go wrestle, go get smacked in the mouth and realize how tough
go break
you
a couple
are.
windows when you're playing baseball outside.
Just go get dirty, go play in the dirt.
I agree. I do think there is a shift that is happening. I mean, it's so interesting. You can even see with social media, like less of Gen Zs on Facebook. They're not quite as engaged on Instagram. Like they still have TikTok and these things, but more and more, there's in my opinion, and I could be wrong, there's some scientist out there who knows better than me for sure, but people are starving for that human interaction. They're starving to live life and be real about it again. And so I think a facility like this is the perfect place for that kind of introduction. Can you tell everybody where can they learn more about the dojo? How can they get in contact with you? How can they sign up?
So we're kind of like organic, a little bit, you know, old school. Word of mouth is how you hear about the dojo. You know what I mean? We have kids that train here. Those parents tell other parents, and you know, we have almost 100 members and that are in here, you know, kids training. We've been open in this facility for 6 months, you know, and our Instagram is the dojo. Our website is thedojoutah.com. And, you know, we're in Mill Creek on 3300 South, 2955 East. And that's, you know, come check it out, come try a class. And we do everything, you know, we do yoga, we do mobility, martial arts movements, we do striking, and we do which is kickboxing and Muay Thai, and then we do jiu-jitsu and wrestling. And it's really, really complicated languages for the body, because body intelligence is mental and brain intelligence and fuel, right? The way you breathe, and this is kind of like our philosophy and what we teach, is the way you breathe is the way you think, which is the way you move. And that's why you feel the way you feel, right? So many kids today are dealing with being diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, which means I don't get to play and run around enough. You know what I mean? They're depression, which means I am just not moving and exerting myself, and I get a little bit too much in our head. And so I think that, you know, that's what I mean by like the way you move is the way you feel, right? The way you breathe is the way you think, and just tying people into, you know, really grabbing awareness and having a greater consciousness around who they are, why the way you are the way you are, and really taking control of that and being like, wait a minute, this is what I want to do with my thoughts. This is what I want to do with my life, and to really use your free will to be the creator of your own life instead of working for one of these 5 major corporations that has you as a slave.
So the 9-to-5 slave is it's just it's just the new
corporation.
It's the new. It's the golden chain, is what we call it, right? People love golden chains,
right? I always say that, you know, you're stuck in a job you might not like, that you might not like to do, but you're making money, so you got to buy a nicer watch, you got to buy a nicer car, but really you're just gold plating your cage.
Yeah, no, exactly.
That's wow. That was
and it's just like,
right.
No, let's break out of the cage and you know, live
Go to
life,
the woods.
you know, simply. And again, that's a whole nother
I think there's a lot of things we need to touch base on episode wise, because so with Wasatch First Consulting and Wasatch First Podcast, there's all kinds of things that we're doing, and you know that Utah Business press release came out that included a bit about you and how you've been helping as well in the business world. And anyway, so for our audience, stay tuned for a lot more. There's going to be information about, you know, even we're doing some work with the Psychedelic Society of Utah, you know, stuff going on downtown at, you know, our business club that we're a part of, things in the political world to stay in tuned about. But Josh, it's just awesome to even just sit down and hear this story in a little bit and be able to show people, you know, what kind of things are happening in their own backyard.
I think too, off what you're saying, I don't tie to people for no reason. I see people doing good things and I want to tie with them. And what I do is what I do. The main thing is the main thing, and that's teaching wrestling and teaching in the dojo. But with what Wasatch First doing and tying into like helping other businesses and helping businesses help people, right? Like I'm in the business of people, you know? And I think that as we talk about this journey, like I was just a kid, and a kid became a student, and the student became a warrior. And then the warrior found himself in this leadership position because I left my community to go out and learn about myself and learn about all the arts of life. But then all I wanted to do was come back to my community and have a family and give back to my community, you know, and I do that in the way of teaching kids here at the dojo. We have a nonprofit that helps kids have affordable martial arts and affordable wrestling
Really? Wow.
because it's not a cheap sport.
Yeah.
But what's next, and why me and Eli have
Yeah.
tied together is to help businesses and to help Utah build businesses that are unique, right, and that are doing things to help people. But then that might just be the platform that makes me be like, you know what, I want to do more for my city, and I would like to be involved in city council because I want to decide and help decide the future for these kids and what happens with the money and what happens to the schools. And then if I like politics, just like I liked fighting, I'm gonna be like, well, maybe I want to be mayor. You know what I mean? Like maybe I want to have a bigger difference in what's happening with my kids in the community and the roads. And then who knows? I don't know. Maybe I'll be like, listen, I want to be governor.
One of the issues is, and Utah is such a great environment when it comes to like, you know, we've been successful for a reason in terms of like capital that we've had and funds. It is because we are a very service-based state. But what can happen too that's unique is, you know, every now and again, you know, we're also the number one state of fraud being committed.
Right.
So we have this duality of so much goodness and service, but also fraud that happens, right?
Yin and yang.
And what we need is we need to champion authentic individuals who have good plans behind them. Because sometimes you could find an authentic person who just has a really, really bad plan.
Right.
And so we gotta find those type of individuals and propel them up. And I think everything you're doing with the dojo, the nonprofit you're working on as well, and these things on the side, I just think there's so much that can happen and that can bleed into the community here.
Right.
And so we're just excited to be a part of that journey, man. And this is just going to be one of many more interactions that I think is going to do a lot of good for a lot of kids.
Yeah,
Right?
I agree. You know, I think that it's our job as you know, men to get involved in first your family, but then in your community, and help your efforts echo into making a safe community for our families and our communities. You know, and I would not be doing my job as in the way that I've been forged if I let weaker men that are servants to bigger corporations make the laws and rules for my kids and future generations.
Yeah.
And like I said, I have a plan, and I keep my plan a little low key, but I plan on being a force for good and for people having human experiences and standing up for the individuals and the communities and the families. And I will do that, you know?
Yeah. And for
in
me,
the
it's
future.
like we do that in honor of the Coach Ohighs. For me, it's the Coach Plumes. You know, it's
Right.
it's the father figures, the good men who've stepped up in our lives, the Rudys, the Stevens, you
Right.
know, those people.
And off of that, the father figures, you know, it's like, man, I had good mentors. I had a good father. I had good men around me. My dad is a great father. He's taught me through his successes, and he's taught me through his failures. And my relationship with my father, right, is like the scripture, the Father and I are one. Jesus had a great relationship with his Father. And I have a great relationship with Heavenly Father. I have a strong relationship with God. I have a strong relationship with community, you know, and I think that, you know, that's going from the immature masculine to the strong masculine, to the mature masculine, to the deep masculine, you know, and it's like, as you talk about Utah, it's like, no, there's a profound history here of pioneers and family and resources, so that if America does see tough times, if the Constitution does hang by a thread, then like there is protection here in these mountains, you know. And I really, really believe that the warrior spirit is rising up, you know, but that's not going to happen without a little bit of struggle and a little bit of adversity, you know. And I think that we're all witnessing that in Utah, whether it becomes, you know, that we don't have enough stances, maybe we don't stand up for what's right or what we believe in, or, you know, it's like, listen, I'm not a company man. I'm not a yes man. I live by my purpose. I know what my purpose is, and it's about family and community and friends. And, you know, and I think that this is just a beginning of so much that I want to do, you know. And again, I like to talk less and deliver more, you know what I mean? But what I know that I can't do is if I don't have other really good men around me, you know what I mean? If I don't have, obviously, good women around me also, you know, and I just think that that's kind of what our conversation's based off,
Yeah.
family lines. And I really believe that, we're here for a purpose, not just to, we're, human beings, spiritual beings having our human experience.
Yeah.
And I think that you guys coming in and having this conversation with me, and when we put our words out there, it helps create the things that we want to create, and so I appreciate the conversation and communication, future relationships, so
Yeah, man. I this has been a man. We've gone overtime because it's such a great, easy conversation. There's so much more to it. I'm so excited to do this again, and have more people see this and just learn more and more about what you're doing and this dojo, and go into a lot more detail about it, because it's just been really fun just to listen, just to be part of this conversation. It's been amazing. So I appreciate you taking the time to do
of course.
this.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Love you, cuz.
Love
your
you, bro.
family. Yeah,
Right.
just grateful for your time, and Dalton's gonna send us off the way he always does.
Yeah, well, thanks, and we'll see you again next time. Cheers.